The series begins with a talented doctor named Ju, a specialist in plastic and reconstructive surgery. At the time, he is completing his mandatory military service and undergoing extremely harsh training exercises with no breaks or mercy. During one of these intense drills, two soldiers fall from a high platform. One of them suffers a broken arm and is treated by another doctor, while Dr. Ju takes care of the soldier whose face was injured. Because of his expertise in cosmetic surgery, he carefully stitches the wound and restores it beautifully. As time passes, Dr. Ju proves himself to be an exceptionally skilled physician. His reputation becomes so impressive that the government assigns him to serve for 1 year on a remote island where he will continue practicing medicine. However, the news worries him greatly. One of his fellow soldiers gives him a strange warning before he leaves. He tells Ju that if he wants to live peacefully on that island, he must stay away from 3 things: incidents, people, and love. According to his friend, getting involved with any one of them will turn his life into a nightmare. The next day, Dr. Ju prepares for his journey and arrives at the harbor, where he is supposed to board a ferry bound for the island. Although he is a doctor, he has a deep fear of the ocean and large bodies of water. While waiting, he receives a call from his psychiatrist, who advises him to reduce the amount of anxiety medication he has been taking. As Ju talks on the phone, a woman named Hari passes by nearby. She is also speaking on the phone, but unlike him, she is loudly arguing with someone. Ju finds her behavior strange, and his surprise grows even more when he notices her drinking alcohol before boarding the ferry. Determined to control his fear, Dr. Ju swallows several anxiety pills before getting on the boat. Even then, he remains nervous and uneasy. During the trip, a group of women tries to wake him up to ask him something, but the medication leaves him feeling extremely dizzy and disoriented. In the middle of his confusion, he suddenly sees Harry throwing herself into the sea. Shocked, he rushes to save her, but before he can stop her, she jumps overboard. Without hesitation, Ju dives in after her. Moments later, both of them disappear beneath the water. Meanwhile, on the island, Miss Huang, the director of the local hospital, and one of the nurses begin wondering why Dr. Ju has not arrived yet. The rest of the ferry passengers reached the island long ago, but there is still no sign of the new doctor. Concerned, Miss Huang calls his phone. To her surprise, someone answers. Even more shocking, the person answering is Dr. Ju himself. When Miss Huang and the others realize that the man standing inside the hospital is the very doctor they have been waiting for, they are stunned. However, Ju immediately asks about the woman from the ferry and whether she survived. Miss Huang looks at him in confusion and tells him to wake up from whatever dream he is having. She then casually remarks that the person who fell from the ferry was apparently their new doctor, something she never expected. Ju is left completely puzzled by her words. Afterward, Miss Huang gives him a tour of the hospital and introduces him to the staff. Among them is Dr. Jukian, a traditional medicine doctor with a playful personality. The moment he meets Ju, he jokingly asks, "Are you the guy who was rescued while carrying a girl on your back?" Ju has absolutely no idea what he is talking about and can only stare at him in confusion. Juchen then casually asks for Ju's phone number so he can add him to the hospital's WhatsApp group. Miss Huang continues showing Ju around the facility, explaining how everything works and eventually handing him the key to the room where he will be staying. Relieved to finally have a place to rest, Ju heads to his new room. But the moment he enters, he encounters a giant insect and nearly jumps out of his skin. Terrified, he runs straight back to Miss Huang, who simply hands him a can of insect spray. Ju returns to the room and proceeds to spray every corner until he is convinced the place is safe. Finally, he opens his luggage to change his clothes, only to discover something alarming. The suitcase is not his. After thinking for a moment, he remembers seeing Hari carrying the exact same suitcase near the ferry. Realizing there must have been a mix-up, he rushes back to Miss Huang and explains that he has someone else's luggage. She tells him to check the village hall, where lost belongings are often taken. Carrying Hari's suitcase, Dr. Ju heads toward the village. Along the way, a speeding vehicle races past him and covers him from head to toe in dust. Annoyed and confused, he eventually arrives at the island's large community hall, where several village elders are gathered. Ju asks them whether they know anything about a woman who fell from the ferry into the sea. The elders exchange glances before telling him that they have not heard of any such incident. Instead, they reveal something even more surprising. According to them, a woman recently returned to the island after rescuing someone from the water. They believe that woman might be the owner of the suitcase. Ju stares at them in disbelief. "Wait, a woman rescued me?" he asks, unable to believe what he is hearing. The elders nod and hand him the address of the woman's house. Curious and eager to uncover the truth, Dr. Ju sets off in search of Hari, following the address all the way to her home. As Dr. Ju walked through the village searching for Hari's house, he suddenly saw her running toward him in panic while a dog chased after her. Instead of helping, Ju became frightened himself and ran even faster. Within seconds, he climbed up a tree to escape. Hari, terrified and convinced that the dog was about to attack her, continued screaming until the dog's owner arrived. To everyone's surprise, the owner turned out to be Hari's aunt. The aunt quickly calmed both of them down and explained that the dog had not been chasing Hari to hurt her at all. The dog simply recognized her from the past and had become excited to see her again after such a long time. Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, Hari and Dr. Ju finally exchanged their suitcases. Before leaving, Ju told her to check her bag carefully to make sure nothing was missing. Hari opened the suitcase and began looking through its contents. While she was checking, Ju noticed several medications inside, including powerful painkillers and drugs used for cancer treatment. The sight immediately reminded him of how she had been drinking alcohol on the ferry. He quietly began to suspect that she was battling a serious illness. At that moment, the giant insect that had terrified him earlier suddenly crawled out of Hari's suitcase. Ju nearly jumped out of his skin in fear, but Hari calmly grabbed the creature and threw it away without the slightest concern. Afterward, Ju checked his own suitcase and made sure everything was there. When he finished, Hari handed him some of his anxiety pills and advised him to reduce the amount he was taking. She reminded him that he had gone through a dangerous episode on the ferry because of those medications. Confused, Ju looked at her and said, "What are you talking about? Wasn't I the one who saved you when you tried to jump off the ferry?" Hari stared at him in disbelief. She explained that she had actually been on a video call with her grandmother, showing her the ocean view, when she noticed Ju stumbling around in a drug-induced daze and nearly throwing himself into the sea. According to her, she was the one who rescued him, carried him on her back, and brought him all the way to the hospital. Ju refused to believe a word of it and simply walked away. Meanwhile, Hari returned to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother was surprised to see her back in the village and immediately asked why she had returned. Hari gently told her that they could discuss that later and suggested they first pray for her mother and father. It was then revealed that Hari's parents had passed away. Back at the hospital, Dr. Ju noticed the same vehicle that had covered him in dust earlier parked outside the building. When he entered and headed toward the restroom, he accidentally walked in on Dr. Hyun taking a shower. Startled, Ju immediately backed away. Dr. Hyun introduced himself as another doctor working at the hospital, and the awkward encounter finally came to an end. Later, Ju returned to his room and sat quietly while looking at a photograph of himself and his friends. Before he could relax, Dr. Juchun appeared and announced that since Ju was the newest doctor on the island, he was expected to buy dinner for everyone. Ju was completely caught off guard, but before long he found himself heading to the village restaurant with the others. They were welcomed by the owner, who happened to be Hari's aunt, the same woman who owned the dog. While waiting for their food, Dr. Juchun asked Ju about his specialty. Ju proudly explained that he specialized in plastic and reconstructive surgery. Juchun immediately turned to Dr. Hyun and jokingly asked why he had never chosen plastic surgery as his specialty. Hyun simply replied that he had no interest in it and considered most cosmetic surgeons to be people chasing money. A few moments later, the food arrived. Unfortunately, Ju took one look at it and completely lost his appetite. The dishes looked nothing like the food he was used to eating. Seeing his reaction, Juxian laughed and told him that there was no other restaurant on the island. For the entire year he would be living there, this was the only food available. If he refused to eat it, he would eventually starve. With no other choice, Ju reluctantly tried to force himself to eat. Luckily for him, salvation arrived in the form of a phone call. Miss Huang called the restaurant owner and informed them that a patient needed immediate medical attention. One of the doctors had to come right away. Without hesitation, Ju volunteered and quickly left the restaurant. Soon, he arrived to examine a man named Mr. Park, who was complaining of severe stomach discomfort. Park insisted that all he needed was a simple antacid because many customers were waiting for him. However, Ju persuaded him to come inside for a proper examination. As he checked him, Ju noticed several concerning signs. Mr. Park's blood pressure was dangerously high, and he was experiencing pain on the right side of his body. Putting the symptoms together, Ju began suspecting a heart problem rather than a stomach issue. To test his theory, he gave Park medication commonly used for heart-related conditions. Shortly afterward, Park started feeling noticeably better. That was all the confirmation Ju needed. However, Mr. Park immediately stood up and announced that he was leaving because his customers were waiting. Ju firmly stopped him and explained that he was showing signs of serious heart disease. In fact, there was a very high risk that his heart could stop at any moment. He urgently advised him to transfer to a larger hospital. Mr. Park stubbornly refused to listen. He insisted that he knew his own body and that nothing was wrong with him. Ju asked him to wait outside for a moment while he called Miss Huang. He explained the situation and stressed that Mr. Park needed immediate transfer to a major hospital. But when Miss Huang arrived, they discovered that Park had already left and returned to work. Realizing how dangerous the situation was, Ju insisted that they find him immediately. The entire team rushed out in search of Park. When they finally caught up with him, he continued insisting that he was perfectly healthy. Yet only moments later, while lifting a heavy bag, he suddenly collapsed. His heart had stopped. Everyone froze in shock, but Dr. Ju immediately sprang into action. He performed emergency treatment and fought desperately to save the man's life. Eventually, a rescue helicopter was called. Mr. Park, still unconscious, was loaded on board and rushed toward a larger city hospital. Ju provided the flight crew with a complete medical report, explaining that he had examined Park less than 30 minutes earlier. Because he knew the patient's condition better than anyone else, the crew asked him to come along. When they reached the city hospital, Mr. Park was transferred to the emergency department. Afterward, the staff thanked Ju for his assistance and casually informed him that he was free to leave. Ju stared at them in disbelief. "Leave?" he asked. "And how exactly am I supposed to get back to my hospital?" The staff simply told him to figure it out himself. Not long afterward, Miss Huang called him and ordered him to return to the island immediately. It was already very late at night. Exhausted from everything that had happened, Ju finally made it back to the island hospital and collapsed from fatigue. Unfortunately, his rest did not last long. His phone rang again. This time, Miss Huang was practically shouting. She warned him that if he did not hurry up and report immediately, she would make sure he stayed on the island for 3 full years instead of 1. The threat instantly terrified him. Ju rushed out and headed toward the shore, but the moment he stood near the sea, the fear he had been trying to suppress returned. Memories from a painful event in his past began flooding back into his mind. His breathing grew heavier, his vision started spinning, and the closer he got to the water, the more overwhelmed and disoriented he became. Still shaken by the frightening memories that were overwhelming him near the shore, Dr. Ju suddenly felt a pair of headphones being placed over his ears. When he turned around, he found Hari standing beside him. Music was already playing through the headphones, and for a brief moment the sound seemed to calm him down. Unfortunately, the music suddenly cut out when the headphones ran out of battery. Ju immediately tried to take them off, but Hari stopped him. "Don't take them off," she said. "Music helps reduce stress." Ju gave her an awkward look and replied, "The battery is dead." Not giving up, Hari pulled out a piece of chewing gum and handed it to him. "Then eat this. It helps with stress." But Ju refused once again. "I'm fine. I'm not stressed." Hari shook her head. "No, you're not fine. You were crying yesterday." Ju froze. Hari explained that while she was carrying him on her back the previous day, he had been crying the entire time. Embarrassed and irritated, Ju asked, "Do you even know me?" Did I ever ask for your help? Even yesterday, when you helped me, I never asked you to. Stop crossing the line." With that, he walked away, leaving Hari standing there. Meanwhile, Nurse Yuam informed Miss Huang that a new nurse would be joining the hospital the following week. At that moment, Ju entered the room. Miss Huang immediately scolded him for being late, but Ju casually explained that he had accidentally fallen asleep on the ferry. Later, he returned to his room. Before going to bed, he quietly placed the chewing gum Hari had given him into a drawer instead of throwing it away. Then he lay down and fell asleep. The next morning, a man named Mr. Lee arrived at the hospital looking for Dr. Ju. He complained that the medicine Ju had prescribed was not helping him at all. However, after questioning him further, Ju discovered the real problem. Mr. Lee had been sharing the medication with his wife instead of taking it properly himself. Immediately understanding why the treatment was failing, Ju instructed the nurse to adjust the prescription accordingly. Mr. Lee became furious and threatened to sue the hospital. Later, during breakfast break, while everyone was eating together, Miss Huang informed Ju that Mr. Lee was planning to file a complaint because he had not been given as much medicine as he wanted. However, while they were discussing the issue, Mr. Lee suddenly walked in carrying a huge amount of food. Everyone stared in confusion. Then he proudly announced that he had bought all the food as a gift for Dr. Ju because the doctor had saved his life. The entire staff was left speechless. Elsewhere, Dr. Jukian was excitedly opening a brand new pair of sandals he had ordered. To his surprise, he noticed that Nurse Yuam was wearing the exact same pair. Smiling, he pointed out that they apparently had the same taste. Unfortunately, Yuom was not amused. Annoyed by his comment, she tossed the sandals straight into the trash. That night, Dr. Ju was preparing to sleep when his phone suddenly started receiving dozens of messages. When he checked the group chat, he discovered that the hospital staff were discussing plans to drink alcohol together. For some reason, the idea sounded appealing. Ju decided to visit the local supermarket and buy some alcohol for himself. But when he arrived, he found Hari standing there with an entire pile of alcohol bottles in her shopping cart. Following her outside, he asked, "Do you drink alcohol every single day?" Hari immediately frowned. "I think you're crossing the line again." Ju wanted to tell her that drinking that much alcohol was bad for her health, but before he could say anything, she cut him off. "Mind your own business." Then she looked at him suspiciously. "Why do you keep following me? Are you some kind of stalker?" Without waiting for an answer, she walked away. Ju followed behind her, trying to explain himself, but suddenly tripped and nearly fell. Instinctively, Hari grabbed him to stop him from hitting the ground. Then she remembered something. She remembered him telling her not to cross the line, so she immediately let go. A second later, Ju crashed straight onto the ground. The following morning, everyone at the hospital gathered to welcome the new nurse. To Ju's complete shock, the new nurse turned out to be Hari. The entire staff welcomed her warmly. It was also obvious that Dr. Jushin felt he had seen her somewhere before, although he could not remember where. Later, Nurse Yuam asked Hari why she had left the city to work at a small village hospital on a remote island. Hari simply smiled and replied that she wanted a change of scenery. Yuam laughed and warned her not to be fooled by the peaceful appearance of the island because life there was much more difficult than it looked. A short time later, Miss Huang approached Dr. Ju with a new assignment. She explained that a former cancer patient named Kim Joing-bi had recently stopped answering his phone. His daughter was worried and had asked the hospital to check on him. Miss Wang instructed Ju and Hari to visit the patient together. The two reluctantly set off on a small boat and traveled toward the man's remote home. While walking through the village afterward, Hari suddenly noticed a large insect crawling on Ju's back. "There's a bug on you," she said. Ju instantly panicked. Terrified, he begged her to help him remove it. Hari crossed her arms and smirked. "I don't want to cross the line." Ju immediately changed his tone. "Please cross the line this one time and get this thing off me." Laughing, Hari removed the insect from his back and tossed it away. Eventually, they reached the cancer patient's house, which stood alone deep inside the forest. Although Ju felt uneasy, they entered the property when no one answered the door. Inside, they found the man. The moment he saw them, he started yelling. Ju and Hari quickly explained that they were from the health center. but the man angrily ordered them to get out of his house. Then they noticed something shocking. The former cancer patient was smoking a cigarette. Hari immediately confronted him. "I heard you recently underwent cancer surgery. Why are you smoking? Your daughter is worried sick about you and you're still doing this. What kind of father are you?" The man fell silent. Then he threw the cigarette away. Unfortunately, instead of calming down, he grabbed a metal rod. The sight terrified Ju. Without waiting to see what would happen next, he turned around and sprinted out of the house at full speed, dragging Hari away with him. Later that evening, the two began walking back along the same path. But as darkness slowly covered the island, they realized they had wandered off course. Before long, they were completely lost in the middle of the forest. As they wandered deeper into the forest, Dr. Ju suddenly began hearing strange animal sounds echoing through the darkness. Hari casually told him that people often said spirits and ghosts roamed this area at night. That single comment terrified him even more. He became so frightened that he almost jumped every time he looked at her face. Trying to solve their problem, Hari suggested that they split up and search in different directions until one of them found the correct path. Ju immediately refused. There was no way he was going to walk through a dark forest alone. While they continued searching for a way out, a motorcycle suddenly appeared. To Ju's relief, it was Dr. Jushian. He stopped beside them and offered to help. However, there was only room for one passenger, so he took Hari with him and left Ju behind. Before leaving, Jushian assured him that someone else would come to pick him up. As they rode away, Jushian looked at Hari and asked, "Do you remember me?" He remembered meeting her sometime in the past, but Hari could not remember him at all. Eventually, they arrived at the hospital cafeteria. To their surprise, Dr. Ju was already there waiting for them. Both Hari and Jushin stared at him in disbelief. "How did you get here before us?" they asked. Ju explained that Miss Huang had picked him up on a motorcycle and driven so fast that he almost got dizzy from the ride. Later that evening, everyone gathered together for dinner, including Mr. Lee. Before long, they started drinking alcohol. The atmosphere became lively, and a drinking competition broke out between Dr. Ju and Mr. Lee. In the end, Dr. Ju won. Mr. Lee, however, became completely drunk. While staring at his reflection in a mirror, he suddenly punched it in frustration. The glass shattered instantly, badly injuring his hand and causing blood to pour out everywhere. Dr. Ju treated the wound, but because both of them had been drinking and it was already very late, surgery could not be performed safely at that moment. With no other choice, Ju went to sleep. 8 hours later, Hari woke him up and informed him that enough time had passed for the alcohol to leave his system. Now they could finally perform the operation safely. Together, Dr. Ju and Hari successfully treated Mr. Lee's injured hand. The following morning, when Mr. Lee regained full consciousness, he looked at his bandaged hand in confusion. "What happened to my hand?" he asked. Ju explained that he had injured himself while drunk. Instead of thanking them, Mr. Lee became angry. He insisted that he had never been drunk and accused them of making up stories about him. After complaining for a while, he stormed out of the hospital. Later, while discussing Mr. Lee's strange behavior, Dr. Ju and Hari found themselves talking about the former cancer patient they had visited. Both of them felt something was suspicious. They remembered noticing an injury on the man's leg during their previous visit and began wondering whether he had been hiding something. Concerned, they decided to visit him again immediately. When they arrived, they asked to see his leg. The man refused, not willing to give up. They carefully removed the covering from his leg and were shocked by what they found. The leg was badly swollen, and the wound had become seriously infected. Because the patient also suffered from diabetes, the injury was much more dangerous than it appeared. They urged him to go to the hospital immediately. Once again, he refused. He begged them not to tell his daughter about the situation, but Ju refused to make such a promise. Eventually, they left the house. However, after they were gone, Hari secretly returned and spoke to the man alone. Later that day, Ju and Hari sat down together and decided to eat some noodles. While they were eating, someone knocked on the door. To their surprise, it was the cancer patient. Looking desperate, he said, "Please help me, I want to live." It was obvious that Hari's private conversation with him had changed his mind. Immediately, they began treating the wound properly, cleaning it carefully and giving him medication to control the infection. After his condition improved slightly, Ju asked what had caused him to change his decision. The man explained that Hari had convinced him. She had told him, "Even if you've given up on your own life, think about the family you'll leave behind. If not for yourself, then fight for your daughter." As he talked about his family, tears began running down his face. After the patient finally fell asleep, the doctor and nurse sat down to rest. Hari then asked Ju how he had known the patient was diabetic. Ju explained that he had become suspicious when he first noticed the condition of the man's leg during their previous visit. As they continued talking, Ju noticed a small wound on Hari's leg. Without saying much, he began cleaning and treating it. While he worked, Hari quietly looked at him and said, "Doctor, you spend all your time treating other people, but I think you're the one who needs treatment the most." Ju looked up in surprise. She continued, "I've noticed that every time you get on a boat, something happens to you. You're hiding something. Don't worry, I'm not trying to cross any boundaries. I'll simply do my job as a nurse. You don't have to tell me anything right now if you don't want to." Then she smiled. "But sooner or later, I'll figure it out myself." The next morning, they accompanied the patient to the ferry terminal so he could travel for further treatment. Before leaving, the man thanked both of them sincerely for saving his life. Afterward, as Ju and Hari were walking back, they crossed paths with Mr. Lee once again. The moment he saw Dr. Ju, he deliberately splashed a bucket of dirty water straight into his face. Ju stood there dripping wet, completely stunned by the unexpected attack. Mr. Lee, still furious, pointed at Dr. Ju and shouted, "You liar! What are you planning to do with my 15 million?" He angrily accused Ju of giving his heart condition the wrong diagnosis and insisted that he did not have the illness Ju had mentioned. He also complained that because of that diagnosis, his insurance company was now involved in a claim worth 15 million. Rather than arguing, Dr. Ju returned to the hospital and washed the dirty water off himself. Later, the entire hospital staff headed out together to have a meal at the village restaurant. While they were walking, Miss Wong explained that Mr. Lee had a very short temper. Whenever he became angry, he tended to lose all control of himself. When they finally arrived, the restaurant owner informed them that the restaurant was closed for the day because they had run out of ingredients. Unfortunately, Mr. Lee was there as well. The moment Dr. Ju saw him, he immediately turned around and left. Instead, he headed to the supermarket. Hari followed after him and tried to calm him down. A little later, the two of them joined a neighborhood cleanup campaign organized by the villagers. However, they once again ran into Mr. Lee. Seeing Ju in cleaning clothes, Mr. Lee laughed and mocked him. "Dr. Ju, you look more like a street cleaner than a doctor. Honestly, this job suits you perfectly." Ju clenched his fists in anger and prepared to walk away. Hari stopped him and reminded him that Mr. Lee was only speaking out of frustration and that he should not take the insults personally. Unfortunately, Ju was too upset to listen. He left the cleanup event and headed back to the hospital. There, he examined a patient who was suffering from severe coughing and chest pain. After the examination, he prescribed medication and sent the patient home. Elsewhere in the hospital, Dr. Young-ju was examining another patient. The woman happened to be carrying a bottle filled with dozens of live bees. After her examination was finished, she accidentally left the bottle behind. A short time later, Nurse Yoon arrived and asked Young-ju to move the bees somewhere safe. Instead, she jokingly used the bottle to scare him because she knew he was afraid of insects. Unfortunately, the joke went horribly wrong. The bottle slipped from her hands and smashed onto the floor. Instantly, hundreds of angry bees swarmed out. Panic erupted throughout the hospital. Doctors, nurses, patients, and even Dr. Ju himself ran for their lives as the bees chased them through the building. Many of them ended up getting stung before escaping outside. The only person who remained inside was Dr. Jushin, wearing protective clothing. He calmly entered the building and sprayed the bees until the situation was finally under control. Later, Jushin sat down with Dr. Ju and Dr. Young-ju and gave them some advice. He told them that they needed to serve the local residents properly and remember that they were public servants. Even though they were doctors, they still worked for the government and had a responsibility to help the people who depended on them. His words left Ju thoughtful. After Jukian left, Ju turned to Yongju and asked whether something significant had happened to Jukian before he came to the island. Yongju nodded and revealed a painful story. Years earlier, while Jukian was treating a patient, another person who had accompanied that patient suddenly died from shock. The dead man's family and many local residents blamed Jukian for the tragedy. They even took him to court and filed a lawsuit against him. Ju was shocked to hear this. At the same time, he remembered how much Hari respected and cared about the island residents, which made him think about the responsibilities that came with being a doctor. The following day, several patients visited Dr. Ju. Determined to avoid arguments and complaints, he simply gave everyone what they wanted. He prescribed 30 days' worth of painkillers to nearly every patient, hoping to keep the villagers satisfied. Later, the patient who had been suffering from coughing returned for a follow-up visit. Ju did exactly the same thing and prescribed another month's worth of medication. After the patient left, Hari came to see him. She asked why he was giving people whatever medicine they requested without questioning whether they truly needed it. Ju honestly admitted that he was trying to avoid conflict and trouble. Hari's expression immediately changed. "I was wrong about you," she said coldly. "I thought you were a good doctor." Her disappointment hit harder than any insult. A little later, Miss Wang informed Ju that he would be traveling to another village the following day for work and that Hari would accompany him. However, Hari overheard the conversation and immediately objected. She announced that she would be traveling with Dr. Jushin instead. Ju was surprised and could not understand why she suddenly did not want to work with him. The next morning, Ju went out for a walk and spotted Hari and Dr. Jushin already leaving on a boat together. Just then, Hari called him. She told him that a shipment of medical supplies for the hospital had arrived and asked him to pick it up. While collecting the supplies, Ju once again encountered Mr. Lee, who was still shouting about the mysterious 15 million. As Ju loaded the supplies, he noticed a carton labeled with Hari's name. Curious, he planned to take a picture and send it to her. Unfortunately, he accidentally took a selfie and sent a photograph of his own face to Hari instead. Meanwhile, Hari and Dr. Jukian arrived at the remote village they had been assigned to visit. One of the villagers immediately laughed at Hari because she had applied so much sunscreen that her face looked completely covered in white cream. Soon, they met the patient they had been sent to treat. To their surprise, the patient was actually a pet dog. While examining the dog, Dr. Jushin was suddenly bitten. Hari quickly treated his injured hand, and during the process, Jukian admitted that he was actually afraid of dogs. Just as they were preparing to leave, the dog's owner called them back and explained that the dog was still in pain. Realizing something was wrong, they returned to examine it more carefully. After another inspection, they discovered that a thorn was lodged deep in the dog's paw. The problem was that the dog refused to stay still. To solve the situation, Hari and Jukian came up with a plan. One of them distracted the dog while the other carefully removed the thorn. After several tense moments, they finally succeeded. The dog was relieved, the owner was grateful, and the treatment was complete. By the time they finished, however, it was already very late at night, and darkness had completely fallen over the village. Meanwhile, Dr. Ju kept asking Miss Wang when Hari and Dr. Jushin would be returning from their trip. While they were talking, Miss Wang received a phone call from Hari, who informed her that they would not be able to return that night. Standing nearby was Dr. Yongju. The moment he heard the news, he laughed and said, "This sounds exactly like one of those old movies from the 1980s. The hero and heroine miss the last boat, get stranded together, and then discover that the hotel only has one room left." As soon as he said that, Dr. Ju couldn't help imagining the entire scenario in his head as if it were a romantic movie. In reality, however, things were much less dramatic. When Hari and Dr. Jushin arrived at the inn and were told that only one room remained available, they simply sat down together, shared a few drinks, and talked. During their conversation, Jukian asked if she remembered the first time they had met. At first, Harry could not remember. Then it suddenly came back to her. Years ago, Jukian had found her lost phone and returned it to her. At the time, she had mistakenly thought he was just trying to get her phone number. Back on the island, Ju decided to deliver the supplies that belonged to Hari to her grandmother's house. Unfortunately, while sneaking around outside the property, her grandmother spotted him and immediately assumed he was a thief. Without hesitation, she smacked him with a stick. Only after Ju hurriedly explained who he was did she realize her mistake. Feeling guilty, she invited him inside and treated the bruise she had accidentally given him. Meanwhile, after finishing their conversation, Hari and Jukian returned to their room for the night. Despite having only one room available, they simply slept on the floor and kept a respectful distance from each other. The following morning, while everyone was having tea, Ju received a call from the patient who had been suffering from a severe cough. Ju told him to come to the hospital for another checkup. The patient arrived shortly afterward, without paying enough attention to the patient's full medical history. Ju quickly prescribed medication and sent him home. But moments after the patient left, Ju reviewed the records again and made a horrifying discovery. The patient had a heart condition. The medication he had just prescribed could be extremely dangerous for someone with that illness. Ju's face turned pale. He immediately sprinted out of the hospital and chased after the patient. The problem was that the patient was already riding away on a motorcycle while listening to music through headphones. Ju had no vehicle. He was forced to chase the motorcycle on foot. The sight of a doctor running at full speed through the village streets quickly attracted attention, but Ju didn't care. He kept running until he finally caught up with the patient. The moment he reached him, he snatched back the medication and demanded to know why he had hidden his heart condition. Then he explained that the medicine he had prescribed could have killed him. The patient and his wife were shocked. After realizing what had happened, they thanked Ju repeatedly. The patient looked at him emotionally and said, "Thank you. You ran all this way just to save my life." Those words hit Ju hard, because the truth was that he had been running not only to save the patient, but also to save himself from a terrible medical mistake. Later, Ju returned to the hospital. Not long afterward, Mr. Lee arrived carrying a large amount of seafood. Everyone assumed he was still angry, but that wasn't the case at all. Hari explained what had happened. It turned out that the insurance company had made a mistake. Mr. Lee really did have the condition that had been diagnosed, and the company was now returning the money they had previously withheld. In fact, he even had grounds to sue the insurance company for their mistake. After hearing the news, Ju thanked Hari for helping resolve the situation. That evening, the two of them sat together and shared a few drinks. At one point, Hari pulled out her phone and showed him the accidental selfie he had sent her earlier. "Laughing," she said. "Whenever I need a good laugh, I just look at this picture." Ju groaned in embarrassment. As they continued talking, Hari asked him what had been bothering him all day. After a moment of hesitation, he finally told her about the patient. "I ran after him because I wanted to save myself and my future as a doctor," he admitted. "But the patient thanked me like I had only been trying to save his life." Hari listened quietly. Instead of judging him, she simply took him somewhere special. She led him to a spot near the shore where countless glowing butterflies filled the night air. Their soft lights shimmered in the darkness like tiny stars. For a while, they stood there watching the beautiful scene together. Hari continued talking, telling jokes and funny stories until she finally managed to make him laugh. For the first time in a long while, Dr. Ju seemed genuinely relaxed. Elsewhere, Dr. Young-ju was checking messages in the hospital group chat. As he scrolled through them, he noticed several people gossiping about the new nurse who had recently joined the hospital. The messages claimed that she had a habit of getting close to doctors wherever she worked. Reading further, Young-ju slowly realized something. The woman everyone was gossiping about was none other than Hari. And suddenly, the rumors surrounding her arrival on the island began to look far more serious than he had originally thought. Dr. Ju and Hari continued enjoying the beautiful evening together by the shore. After a while, Ju finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why did you choose to travel to the other village with Dr. Juchin instead of me?" Hari smiled and answered honestly, "Because I know you're afraid of the ocean. The only way to reach that village was by boat, so I chose him instead." Ju was surprised by her answer. He had never expected her to pay such close attention to him or quietly look out for him like that. Then Hari looked at him and asked, "Would you be willing to go to that village if I went with you?" Ju immediately fell silent, unable to answer. At that moment, heavy rain suddenly began pouring from the sky. Instead of running for shelter, the two of them laughed and ran through the rain together, enjoying the moment like children. By the time the rain finally stopped, both of them were completely soaked. Later that night, after returning to her room, Hari sent Ju a photograph she had secretly taken of him during the rainstorm. The moment Ju saw the picture, he couldn't stop smiling. The next morning, Hari showed him another photograph she had taken. While they were talking, Ju noticed Dr. Juchen watching them from a distance. Suddenly, he began sneezing repeatedly and rubbing his nose. Hari looked at him in disbelief. "You're a doctor. How do you not know how to control a sneeze?" She then began teaching him several tricks to reduce sneezing. However, in the middle of her explanation, Ju received an emergency call from a patient and immediately rushed away. The patient turned out to be Hari's grandmother. She had suffered an injury to her face. While treating the wound, Ju noticed that her house was filled with various medications. Curious, he asked why she was taking so many drugs. The elderly woman explained that she often suffered from severe pain and regularly relied on painkillers to get through the day. Ju immediately warned her not to take medications that had not been prescribed by a doctor. He also urged her to come to the hospital for proper treatment. However, she refused. "I don't want people seeing me as a sick old woman," she said. Then she revealed why she had secretly called Ju instead of informing Hari. "The reason I hid this injury from Hari is because she'd worry too much. She would make a huge fuss over it." Ju smiled and promised that he would keep her condition private. At the same time, he reminded her that patients should trust their doctors and never feel ashamed of their illnesses. His words touched her deeply. Eventually, she agreed to follow his advice and sincerely thanked him for helping her. Afterward, Ju left the house. Unfortunately, as soon as he stepped outside, Hari spotted him. Confused, she asked, "Why didn't you tell me that my grandmother was the patient you came to see?" Later, the two of them walked together near the ocean. Hari looked disappointed in herself. "I failed," she said sadly. "Even my own grandmother doesn't trust me." Ju immediately shook his head. "I know how much you've done for her. You've always looked after her, helped her, and even bought her medicine whenever she needed it. You're a hero." His words instantly calmed her heart. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Dr. Juchen told Ju to check the doctor's group chat. When Ju opened it, he was shocked. The chat was filled with rumors about Hari. Some people claimed that she was the type of nurse who only got close to doctors. Others suggested she had been involved with several doctors at her previous workplaces. Juchian even told Ju that many people believed Hari and Dr. Hyeon were currently involved in a relationship. According to the gossip, villagers had seen them riding together in a small car and traveling on boats together. Ju refused to believe any of it. But despite himself, the rumors began bothering him. A little later, Hari and Dr. Haeyeon were assigned to teach a medical training session for the villagers. As they left together, Ju watched them through his office window. They seemed happy while walking side by side. For reasons he didn't fully understand, the sight irritated him. Soon afterward, Miss Wong noticed that Hari and Dr. Hyun had forgotten some of their supplies. Before anyone else could volunteer, Ju offered to deliver them. When he arrived at the village hall, he found Hari conducting a first aid lesson, while Dr. Hyeon explained emergency treatment procedures to the crowd. Everything was going smoothly until Mr. Lee suddenly interrupted. "You two look like a young couple in love." The villagers immediately burst into laughter. Hari quickly denied it. "Stop saying things like that. There's nothing between us. He's my doctor, and I'm only his nurse." At that moment, she noticed Ju standing nearby holding the forgotten supplies. After dropping them off, he quietly turned around and left. Later, after the lesson ended, Hari confronted Dr. Hyeon. "Why didn't you say anything when they called us a couple?" Dr. Hyeon shrugged. What's the big deal? It was just gossip. Hari wasn't satisfied. She told him that from now on, he needed to correct people and tell them the truth instead of remaining silent. Elsewhere, Nurse Yuom approached Dr. Jong and asked him to accompany her while she picked up some items she had ordered online. Instead of agreeing, Dr. Jong snapped at her. "Am I the only person you know? Don't you have any friends? You're such a boring person." His words hurt her feelings. Angry and embarrassed, Yuom told him she would go alone and stormed off. Later, Hari found Dr. Ju looking for something to drink. She smiled and asked, "How about we sit together and have a drink?" To her surprise, Ju immediately refused. "I don't want people getting the wrong idea and thinking we're involved." Hari looked confused. "What's wrong with that?" Ju then told her about all the rumors he had heard, including the claims that she was dating Dr. Hyun and that she had supposedly been involved with many doctors. Hari's face darkened. "So that's why you've been avoiding me all day?" she asked. Then she added bitterly, "Are you afraid I'll try to start a relationship with you?" Without waiting for an answer, she walked away in anger. Meanwhile, Dr. Jong tried telling Dr. Hyun about the rumors surrounding Hari. However, Dr. Hyun happened to be wearing earphones and wasn't listening at all. Elsewhere, Yuom called Dr. Jong and informed him that she had accidentally taken his phone by mistake and asked him to come get it. When he arrived at her house and retrieved the phone, he noticed an entire table covered with food and a birthday cake. Surprised, he asked why she had prepared so much food. Yuom quietly replied, "It's my birthday. I was planning to celebrate alone because I don't have any friends." Dr. Jong felt guilty, so he sat down, sang for her, clapped, celebrated with her, and helped her enjoy the evening. At the same time, Ju couldn't stop thinking about the way he had treated Hari. The more he thought about it, the worse he felt. Just then, Hari called him and informed him that a patient had arrived. When Ju reached the hospital, he found a patient with a metal object stuck through his tongue. He attempted to remove it, but Dr. Hyun arrived and immediately pointed out flaws in his approach. Taking over, Hyun removed the metal himself. After finishing, he casually told Ju to prescribe the medication because he had another call to attend before walking away. Ju was furious. He ripped off his gloves in frustration. The next morning, Dr. Jong woke up in complete shock. After drinking so much at Yuom's birthday celebration, he had accidentally fallen asleep at her house. Before leaving, Yuom warned him to be careful. "Don't let the villagers see you coming out of my house. Wait 20 minutes before following me." Then she left. Later that morning, Dr. Jong arrived late to the hospital and was immediately scolded by Miss Huang. Just then, a phone call came in. Miss Huang was informed that a senior health director named Miss Choi was on her way to inspect the hospital and that she carried an important warning message. At the same time, Miss Choi was already approaching the island on a ferry. Panic spread through the hospital. Miss Huang gathered the staff and asked whether anyone had done something wrong. Dr. Jong nervously wondered if Miss Choi had discovered the gossip group, but Ju quickly stopped him before he could say anything. Ms. Huang ordered everyone to prepare immediately. The entire staff rushed around cleaning, organizing, and getting ready for the inspection. While they were waiting, a mother arrived carrying her young daughter. She explained that regular medicine had not helped her child and asked whether traditional treatment might work instead. Dr. Jong began examining the girl, but she quickly burst into tears. At that moment, Miss Choi finally arrived. Looking around the room, she asked, "Has anyone here made a mistake?" Everyone froze. Then she turned directly toward Dr. Ju. "You're a government doctor. How do you not know the chairman of the National Health Organization?" Ju looked completely confused. "Mr. Ko," she said. "Don't tell me you've never heard of him." The entire staff immediately panicked. After a long pause, Miss Choi finally smiled. "I only came here to tell you his name." Everyone nearly collapsed from relief. Miss Huang then offered to show Miss Choi around the hospital. Unfortunately, just as they started walking, the little girl accidentally crashed into Miss Choi while carrying a glass bottle. The bottle shattered and cut Miss Choi's hand. Ju quickly stepped forward and treated the injury, carefully stitching the wound with remarkable skill. Meanwhile, village chairman Mr. Lee announced that the sea had become extremely rough and dangerous. As a result, all boat traffic was suspended until conditions improved. Hearing that news, Miss Choi smiled. In that case, I'll be staying here with all of you. Miss Wong and the hospital staff forced smiles onto their faces and applauded, even though they were secretly horrified. That evening, everyone gathered at the village restaurant for dinner. Hari sat alone outside, clearly upset about the rumors being spread about her. Ju approached her and tried to comfort her. Before their conversation could continue, however, the little girl from earlier was suddenly rushed in with a severe medical emergency. After examining her, Ju realized she was suffering from epiglottitis, a dangerous infection that causes severe swelling in the throat and can block the airway. Epiglottitis, he quickly concluded that the island lacked the equipment needed to treat her properly. Without wasting a second, Ju and Hari raced to the hospital and gathered emergency medical supplies. When they returned, Miss Choi ordered Ju to accompany her and the patient by boat. Ju immediately refused. "I'm not a pediatric doctor." But Miss Choi insisted that he come, especially since he was the only doctor who hadn't been drinking during dinner. As the boat prepared to leave, Ju's fear of the ocean returned. Hari stayed by his side and encouraged him. "I'm here with you. Don't be afraid." Trying to focus on saving the child, Ju began inserting an emergency airway tube to help her breathe. But as he worked, terrifying memories flooded back into his mind. He kept hearing the voice of the woman he once loved calling for help as she disappeared into the sea. The hallucinations grew stronger, his hands started shaking, his vision blurred, the panic became unbearable. And before anyone could stop him, Ju lost his balance and fell straight into the ocean. Hari watched in horror as he disappeared beneath the waves.